So we're here to talk about making money out of estate planning, and it's important to set the expectation here is that this isn't a seminar about the technical aspects of estate planning. This is a seminar more about the business aspect of it and how it might fit into to your practices. So what we're going to cover is why you should be interested in this area, what you can do and perhaps in some instances what you can't do, the process as far as we see it, understanding the key issues, segmenting your clients and hitting the hot buttons or the hot issues that are going to generate that client engagement, and your role, so what you can actually do, and getting client buy-in. And finally, and perhaps what you're all here for, the value to your practice. So what do we know about estate planning or making money out of estate planning? I was having dinner last night with an accountant mate, and he said, what am I going to talk about? I said, I'm making money out of estate planning. He said, oh, he was actually quite worried. He said, mate, how are you going to talk more than 15 minutes on that? He said, there's nothing to it. All you need to do is raise the issues, document and write down what the client wants, and then just charge a modest fee to make it all happen. And the ironic thing is he's right. That really is it. So that's what I'm going to talk about in a nutshell. The other thing is, just on that, I'm not sort of here to preach about how to make money. I'm sure some of you are doing quite well making money out of estate planning. But what I want to do is just give you a little bit of an insight as to what we've seen work in people's practices and what hasn't worked. So perhaps you can sort of skip a few of the pitfalls that people have come across. So what's all the interest in estate planning? Estate planning used to be the poor cousin of the legal industry. And I think that the lawyers who have practiced in this area for a long time still can't believe that it's such a hot topic. And it's, I think one of the reasons is this huge intergenerational wealth transfer that everybody talks about. And this shows that by 2030, we're looking at something like $75 billion of money being transferred. And in the US, the figure's around sort of 11 or 12 trillion dollars that's going to be passed between the baby boomers' parents and the baby boomers' children over the next 30 years. So we're talking about a lot of money, and I think that's probably what's got a lot of people's interests. But I'm also a little bit more pragmatic about why I see such a growing interest in this area. And one of them is that a lot of us in the room have spent most of our lives complicating our clients' lives. So, family trusts, self-managed super funds, structures, all those sort of things. And we've now got to that stage with a lot of our clients that we need to deal with those issues. There's an increased awareness of what can go wrong. So we see the media, the Reinhardts and various high-profile families where things have gone wrong just for a lack of planning, not really anything more complicated than that. And as you work with your clients and they get more of an appreciation of what can be done, there is a demand for more sophisticated outcomes. So I'm sure you're finding, but I'm finding the clients come in very well versed in the sort of outcomes they want. And it's not, I want to give everything to my spouse and then I want to give everything to my kids. They want more sophisticated things. They want to actually, what we used to say, rule from the grave as far as that period after death, not just the event of death. And I sort of see that as actually take responsibility from the grave, not rule from the grave, because some of the things we're going to talk about, if you dump a whole lot of money on people when you die, that's actually irresponsible. So it's not really ruling from the grave as it used to be seen. And perhaps the most, I think, influential reason why this is a hot area is what's happening in professional services. Obviously in financial planning, I think it's the same in accounting, it's certainly that way in law. It's really competitive. And people are looking at ways to engage with clients in a meaningful and long-term and emotional way. And estate planning is a really great vehicle to do that. So just recapping on the great market that we've all created for ourselves, I don't think we can take responsibility for divorce and marriage statistics, but they're pretty amazing. The chances of your clients or their parents or children being involved in a blended family is actually very high. So, and that drives a lot of issues around estate planning and passing wealth on. The current stat, I think, from the tax office is 600,000 family trusts out there lodging returns, a massive growing number of self-managed super funds, millions of companies, and still a huge untapped market with 60%, that's an estimate, of people who still don't have a will. And I would say of the 40% that do have a will, it's probably inadequate for a number of reasons. So from a high level perspective, what is estate planning? And I think this is important because it sets the scene, because I think people don't actually see estate planning necessarily for its full breadth. Estate planning is really about managing wealth, and that's up to the point when you die, the event of death, which is usually pretty quick, hopefully, and then after that, the period after that, where that wealth is being transferred to the next generation. If you've got young children, obviously there's issues of bringing them into a position where that they can control it and it's not going to harm them, let alone help them, but not harm them is really a first objective when passing wealth on. But I keep on using the word wealth because fundamentally it's about wealth management. You could actually substitute estate planning with the words wealth management. And that is, for accountants and financial planners, that is your business. So we're talking about fundamentally your business. So basically you're hired. So I think it's a good idea for you all to sort of think about what you're actually doing. I'm sure you're all involved in estate planning to some degree. But I think it's worth sitting down and sort of saying, well, where am I on the scale of knowledge in relation to estate planning? Do I sort of understand what it is and how it fits in? That's sort of the starting point. The next point is, do I understand the issues that are going to be relevant to my clients? So I'm not saying whether you've got the answers, but do you know the issues? And then if you've been working in the area for a while, you will start to have an appreciation of the solutions. So it's one thing to raise an issue with a client, it's obviously another one to help them with a solution. So I think it's a good idea to actually have an honest idea of where you fit on that spectrum. And then what's your level of activity in this area on a day-to-day basis? Are you just checking the box on an annual review, having a chat about these issues with a client in a meeting? Or are you actually talking about, proactively raising these issues, talking about the solutions, project managing them, really integrating them within your practice? And finally, what are your frustrations? What are the problems you need to solve to make this a really great area and a profitable area and an interesting area of your practice? And the ones that we come across quite often, first of all, is a lack of knowledge about the issues. And people have maybe read some books, have gone to some seminars about some technical issues, and they don't actually have a really good picture of where all this fits together. The next one is a lack of knowledge about the solutions, and I think this is actually a key impediment to people taking this on, because they might know the issues, but they're afraid to raise the issues because they're afraid that the client's going to think they're silly because they don't know the solutions. I'm going to talk about that issue because that's central to actually making some money out of this without being a lawyer. Lack of client engagement. Wills are boring, let's face it. And what do we do about that? Because it's not just about wills. A lack of good complementary advisors comes up a lot. They say, well, we can't, how do we ensure that we've got people that we can involve in this process because we can't do everything? How do we do our due diligence on them? How do we find out how they are? How do we interact with them? There's a high transaction cost of involving lawyers and accountants if you're a financial planner, or a financial planner and lawyer if you're an accountant. But I think really fundamentally what we hear all the time is it's a huge effort, but there's no money in it. I sit there and I talk to the client and we blah, 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 business succession, blah, 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 and they won't pay for it. So it's all very interesting, but I can't make any money out of it. So hopefully we can give you some ideas about that. So what can you do?